All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mogul Marathon Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Yannick Cudjoe-Virgil, and I'm super excited for our guest today. Our guest today is a very, very special guest. We're going to be talking about the NFL life, transitioning from the NFL into real estate investments and other investment opportunities, branding yourself as a professional athlete, and a whole lot more within the context of professional athletes getting into the world of real estate and also other investments. But before we do that, please, please, please like, review this podcast. This podcast runs on reviews. We've been getting a ton of feedback from people who are learning a lot from our podcast, but we want to hear more. We want to hear more from you, the listeners. That allows us to bring more high quality guests to our show and provides more actionable content for you to go out there and be a real estate mogul. So for today's show, today we have Brandon Copeland. Now, Brandon is a good friend of mine. He and I started training around the time when I was getting into the NFL, training for the combine, and he is now a 10-year NFL veteran, Ivy League professor, philanthropist, entrepreneur, and is a true leader in his community, spreading financial literacy and equipping others with the information they need to build a better future for themselves. Brandon has used his production company, Copeland Media, in strategic partnerships to expand the reach of his financial education course to 90,000 people and counting, while building a 9-figure real estate portfolio and starring in the Netflix series Buy My House during his NFL career. He is also a member of CNBC's Financial Wellness Council and is a Forbes 30 under 30 member. Brandon, thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Hey, I appreciate you. I'm sorry you had to, read all that, man. That thing.
You have a great background. You have a great background. We definitely have to, have our listeners give them some context about, the work that you did, especially from being in the NFL, still being in the NFL, and also investing. Right? You and I have had lots of conversations offline about real estate and other opportunities. But for our listeners who don't know who Brandon Copeland is, give our listeners a little bit context about who you are and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, man, it's an honor, truly an honor to be here and to be talking and having this type of conversation with you. I think that when you think about when you pose that question of who I am, right? Like, think about when we met. We were in that gym training with Troy. Shout out to Troy Jones, senior and junior, but we were both chasing a dream. And for us, it was bigger than just playing on the field, right? And not many people know this, but that year I got down to about $243 in my bank account. And to hear you say some of the things that you said in the bio, right? It's like, who would have ever thought? Like, who would have ever thought in that gym, we probably were eating rotisserie chickens from Sam's Club for lunch and stuff like that, just trying to get an opportunity, trying to get a shot. And who would ever thought? So when I think about who I am or what I'm trying to give to my children, my two boys, I got the heart of a lion, bro. Like, there is nothing that I see that I think there's nothing that I see that I want to do that I feel like, oh, I can't get it done. And I don't say that because I know that it comes off to some people as like really cocky, but it's something that I've actually had to work on and throughout my football career and also just throughout my life of just accepting that, like, anything I want, I can really go get it. And I just got to be willing to take it step by step and go day by day. As you know, in the NFL, it's all about consistency. It's not about, there's guys that I was an undrafted free agent in 2013, and you look up 10 years later, it's only literally from that draft class, it might be me and one other player with Baltimore. Those players that were drafted with the Ravens might be me and one other player. Like, it's very few people that make it that long, but I attribute that to consistency and discipline and putting a goal in your mind and not being swayed from that, not being swayed from your standard for yourself. And so when I think about me is I have my own vision, I have blinders on, and I will not let anyone deter me from the vision I have for my life. Is everything perfect? No. Can we be better? Yes. Could I learn more? 100%. I am not the smartest person in the room. However, I am smart enough to know when to ask questions and when to shut up, and also when to take over. And so for me, that's Brandon Copeland in a nutshell. I'm a go getter. I'm gonna get it done. Difficult takes a day, impossible takes a week type of dude.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I had the pleasure of seeing your work ethic, getting a front seat to that, and definitely, have seen you grow, like you mentioned, from, we were talking offline a little bit, from being a broke Madden player, right? Back when we were trading
Yeah.
to training to now being a professional, being on CNBC, being on Netflix. I mean, the growth that you've had in your in your your life has been exceptional. But take me to the point where you decided that real estate was a thing for you, right? You're playing in the NFL, making good money. Why real estate specifically, and not other asset classes?
Yeah. Yeah, so 2013, I came into the NFL as an undrafted free agent out of the University of Pennsylvania. When I was in college, I interned for Union Bank of Switzerland. UBS is one of the largest wealth management banks in the world. Like, I won't say the country, in the world. And I was a stock sales and trading summer intern, summer analyst. And when I came into the NFL, I was practice squad. And even if I was active, like I was undrafted. Like I didn't think that I was going to come in and be, $100 million man the next day. So I always planned on using football as a means to an end, even in high school. So when I came into the NFL, I'm like, okay, I'm getting startup capital. I'm going to take this and I'm going to invest it in the stock market. That's what I did these summers of internships for, is to learn, and to invest and grow my own money. And so I was day trading options. I was day trading Bank of America, Nike, Ford, some others probably at that time too. But those were the main names. I would just literally follow the ebbs and flows, and I just try to do calls and puts on them and stuff like that. Long story short, I had a lot of success that first year. I'm talking certain days I'd come in and, Tuesdays, most of the time it's your off day unless you plan on a Monday or a Thursday, right? And there'd be days on Tuesdays I'd go in, I'd wake up early, watch some CNBC, and by noon I'm up $3,000-$4,000 in my portfolio, and cool, let's go to the mall, let's go do something else, right? And what happened was, man, I'm gonna keep it a stack with you. What happened was I went to a Kanye West concert, brother. I went to a Kanye concert, and I remember I wasn't messing with Ye at the time, right? Hopefully we don't get your podcast banned. But long story short, at the time, it was the week Ye started ranting. He said, I've done more for Black history than Barack Obama. He went off on Sway. And anyway, he had a concert in Nashville. I was playing with the Titans at the time, and the vets said, Cope, you going to come to this concert? I'm like, nah, I'm not supporting that dude. I'm a rookie. Not going to make my life harder over a free concert that the vets want to pick us up in a party bus to go to, right? Like, I'm going to go to the concert. Long story short, he does go on a rant there at the concert, and homie, he put the battery in my back, brother. He had me. I was believing the vision. I was like, oh, I see what you talk. They holding me back. I got you, right? And so the next day or a few days later, I end up taking a largest position I ever took in some Nike call options. It was a great call. Everything, the fundamentals, everything was right. However, 2 days later, the entire market went down 2% because of some geopolitical tensions going on over in Greece. And so I know this is a real long-winded answer. You know me, I'm long-winded, so I apologize, right? But at that point, I'm like, yo, I have no control over this. Like, I literally could not control anything going on over in Greece right now. This play is good. I invested in Nike because it was the World Cup, and Brazil was a Nike team. Nike owned 4 or 5 of the top 10 teams in the World Cup. They had their banners all over Brazil, all of that type of stuff. Like, it was a great call. And again, that experience of literally having no power over my money at that point, and wiping out 5 figures of money and earnings for the year, that hurt. It hurt a lot. And so that's what originally turned my interest to real estate. Was, okay, well, at least if I'm gonna lose money in real estate, like, well, I get to pick the colors, I get to pick the carpets, I get to pick the floors. Like, if we lose, it's on me, and I can deal with that. I can go to sleep being pissed off at myself, but being pissed off at something that I have no control over, nah. So that in January 2014 is when I started getting interested in real estate, and spent years of just doing research and due diligence. Many nights and days at Home Depot, honestly, trying to figure out what's these nails, and why these cost more than this, and what's this carpet, and why is this thicker, and what are these windows, and trying to just understand, because as as athletes, we're just afraid to be cheated out of our money, and so spent time trying to go look at properties and understand what I should be looking for before purchasing, and walkthroughs and things of that nature, and then eventually got the gumption. We bought our first property, which is a home we lived in New Jersey, December 2016. And then in 2017, we did our first co-investment real estate project. I put 40 grand as dang near a hard money loan into a business. And then really started diving in, just learning as much as possible. Did another 35 grand investment into somebody's rehab within their project. And then after that, just jumped off the ship and started taking on projects myself. So that's kind of the trajectory right there. 2017, we ended up co-investing in 2 projects, buying 5. We did a 6-figure profit in our first year. And at that point I was hooked,
Yeah. I think the thing I like about real estate is that, it's a business that allows you to bet on yourself, right? And I think for people who are more comfortable with betting on yourself, I think real estate is a perfect opportunity to invest in, right? So you made a great point that when you invest in stocks, you're investing in someone else's company, and something happens in the news and the stock ticker goes down. Well, that doesn't really happen in real estate, right? Because you're the one that's essentially controlling your destiny, right? And I think that goes in line a lot with a lot of athletes in terms of their personality, and their trajectory to success, right? Because for us to get to the level that we have gotten to, we had to do a high level of betting on yourself at some point, right? So I personally feel that that real estate is a great opportunity for athletes to leverage some of those disciplines and skill sets and all of the things that we've learned in the professional sport context into the world of entrepreneurship. And so I know that you started off in the residential space and then started getting into more and more commercial opportunities. You've been in LIHTC transactions. I know that you have also, passively invested into some land development, et cetera, as well. Talk a little bit about that, right? Because you started off as someone who was a little bit active in the field, right? There's this picture that's circulating around the media where you're holding maybe a clipboard with your brother who's, your partner, and you're in projects. And I know that you had something in Detroit that you may, want to touch on as well, that I think athletes, can definitely learn from. Walk us through that journey as to why you kind of switched to the passive investment side, and maybe that, situations in the past, something happened, that, made you think that, the passive route was something for you, right? Maybe touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, no. See, so yeah, I was hands on, and I think that for me, you want to spend time learning as much as you possibly can, and I think that one of my gifts, is just staying curious. Like, I'm always going to ask questions. Like, I'm always going to be, well, what's behind that? dang, are y'all doing it like that? And I remember there was a guy, Rob Sims, former NFL player. He was one of the guys I co-invested with early on. But I remember he just took me on a ride around Detroit and showed me some of the properties he had. He had recently retired, and he was just showing me, hey, I'm co-investing in this with Megatron. I'm co-investing in this with Golden Tate. I'm doing this. I'm doing this. And then he took me to an apartment building that they were building. Like, we had to put on the hard hats, go in, and I'm just like, dang, like, there's levels to this thing. He took me to one house where they were knocking off the entire top and building the second level right on top and then adding the roof back to it so that they can increase the square footage, the bedroom size and everything like that. So literally on that one ride around Detroit, I'm like, I get to see there's really levels to this shit. Like, oh, okay. Like, and I think that for most of us, that's just what we're lacking is exposure, right? If you don't know that it exists, then you can never visualize it and go achieve it. And then two, we also lack the understanding. And I remember Rob and I sitting in his office and having a really powerful conversation about this at the time. This is 2017, maybe spring of 2016, actually. For us as athletes, sometimes we understand collaboration in the sense of a team, but we don't understand collaboration when it comes to our money. We don't look at the NFL as a joint venture agreement. We don't understand, like, we think in order to own the building, like, I got to really get all of my money together and I got to be able to afford the entire building, as opposed to seeing like, well, no, you bring what you have. I'll bring something that I have. We'll go to the bank, get this loan. We'll do this, right? And making sure that the deal works. And again, it's not something we get exposed to in schools. You just have to be in the right place at the right time and have the right mind to accept it. And so that's what helped me graduate, I guess, from residential flips to bigger and better projects. I won't even say better projects, bigger, larger scale projects, right? It's to each their own. Some of the residential issues that I dealt with, a lot of people talk about, rental income being, financial freedom, and it's passive. And I remember one time we had our first rental, December 17th, 2017, we had a leak in it. Now this thing is brand new, renovated spot, but things happen, right? One, I don't want to be a slumlord. That's just not who I am. Two, it's about to be the holidays. It's Christmas coming around the corner. And so now I'm spending I'm spending time trying to get people in there to dry out the place, restore everything, cut open the wall, find the leak, all of that type of stuff, get everything ready. And I'm like, this ain't passive. What you talking about? Right? Like, now, my tenants always paid, knock on wood. I've been fortunate in that regard. I know at some point that's not going, that streak will end. Unfortunately, that's just nature of the business if you've been in it for long enough. But that was one moment. And I remember when I called the insurance company, I called the insurance company and they said, hey, you know what? Like, you don't have an insurance with us. And I'm like, what you mean we don't have insurance with you? Like, when we set up the mortgage, like, I'm paying every single month into my account. Like, my mortgage, it includes the taxes and the insurance. Yeah, no, they never called and set up the policy. What? So now I'm coming out of pocket, getting everything restored. The bank ended up coming back and reimbursing it like 4 months later. But that, even in my mind, was like, oh, like, that was my first real time understanding what people said, like, it takes money to make money. Because if I didn't have it just sitting in there from an NFL check, then the business would have been over. I would have called homie back like, yeah, my bad on the pipe. Like, good luck, bro. So again, little things like that just made me start thinking, okay, if I'm going to do rentals, I gotta be making more of a threshold every single month. And then is this really passive? Do I really want multiple tenants and things like that? All right. Well, where am I going to achieve the lifestyle that I'm actually looking for and the mental freedom that I'm actually looking for, and also the returns that I would love to seek, right? That monthly recurring revenue. And so that's what propelled me to start looking for bigger projects. Originally, I was looking for simple things. I think that us in the Black community, we want the sexy things, right? We want the chains, we want the cars, we want the nice stuff, right? We want to brag about, I got this many doors, this many units. Right now, I'm looking for storage units. I'm looking for parking lots. I'm looking for things that are going to be there that I could tell my children, yo, just repaint the white lines in the parking lots every 50 years. Don't fuck it up, right? Like, that's what I'm looking for now, right? I'm looking for peace, as that little meme goes. So I dib and dab, I guess, in a lot of different areas right now. But I think that that's the mindset, is like, all right, like, everything that glitters ain't gold. And so if you have the ability to pick and choose your battles, then just choose wisely. Because sometimes shoot, you're a real one, right? Like, we understand there's some people I've met a bunch, right? But there's some people, they get these platforms and there's a lot of fugazi stuff going on around them. Not calling anybody out, but they talking about things that they own that they don't really own, or they talking about things that they own that they acting like they're doing well, but they ain't really doing well. And for me, I'm like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I want to make sure I go home to my wife and my kids and we good. Period. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for longevity, and I'm looking to, as my buddy said, I'm a hustler right now. Grind all day, 24/7, dream chaser. As my buddy said, at some point your ass better catch the dream. Like you don't want to be 60. "Oh, I'm still getting it, brother." Nah. Like, so that's my mindset. It's like I got the hustle mentality now, and I'm hustling, and that's why I keep staying curious. And I'm always going to be curious. And the hustle is a different type of hustle. It's more of a mental hustle than a physical hustle. But I'm trying to catch the dream, get that thing right, make it cash flow. Cool. Let's go get another one. And let's go play Monopoly in this world. And so I look at myself really as the bank, and I'm just putting my money to work for me, putting these soldiers out. Y'all give me a return, and we go put all y'all back out again and get your ass out the house. You got to go earn something in this crib.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you giving that context, man. And that's what I call growth, right? Because for me as well, when I got into the real estate industry, I was trying to do everything by myself, right? The construction, the management, the leasing, the sale, everything. But as you grow, and it all comes down to how you want to build your real estate business, right? Some people want to be in the weeds, right? Some people don't want to be in the weeds, right? The goal of getting into real estate was to get financially free, but part of that too is also time freedom as well, right? Because you can make a lot of money, but you could also be working another job as well, right? And it's probably no difference from you working for a corporate position, but the difference would be that you're obviously making more money. But I say that to say that it's all about building a real estate business by design, right? If passive investing is more of your thing, then focus on that, right? Because real estate, like you mentioned, it is not passive. It's only passive if somebody else is doing all of the work, all of the managerial aspects to real estate, and you're just showing up with a check and maybe just reading some reports and just looking over your investment, right? And that's really what real estate was supposed to be. But along the way, social media and all of the glitz and the glams that are out there, it was told to be sexy, to be the person that's hanging the drywall, or be the person that's putting the nails on the wall, all of those things, which I think it comes down to, like I mentioned, how do you want to create your real estate business by design, right? And so I want to pivot the conversation to the due diligence aspect of it, right? Because
Can I add one more thing real
absolutely
quick? Not to cut you off, but like what you just talked about the business, right? Like, I think that that's one of the things I would also, I know you do an amazing job of this, is encourage people to think about, right? Like, whether it's real estate or your 9 to 5 or whatever it is, focus on the business. Focus on the money. And what I mean when I say that, I had a conversation with the CEO of like a major gym franchise that everybody would know. And he was talking to me about how some of his buddies, he had to talk to him about the financial education piece, because some of his buddies are 60-year-old doctors making one of which was making like 1.2 mil a year, and he cannot retire. Like, he's actually technically broke. Like, he has nothing saved. He's been living, if he was making 1.2, he's spending 1.199, right? Like, and hasn't put certain things away for retirement or anything like that. So like, again, like, one of the things I found in Detroit that I keep that perspective on is because sometimes it's like we just want to say we're a part of certain things. And, I watch a lot of HGTV. No offense, it's not offensive to HGTV. They taught me a lot of things about different colors and different styles and different things of that nature, things I should be thinking about, budgets and all of that type of stuff, especially early on. But like, I'd be in Detroit and I'd take a crib, 35 grand. We did one crib, 35 grand. We put 15,000 into it. We really probably could have put less into it because it was a 4-bedroom. The lady before there, she had installed a bedroom on the ground floor, put a handicap tub in it because she was just older, right? And we changed that handicap tub. The person that moved in was a father and a daughter. Father needed a handicap tub. So it was like, dang, we could have actually probably saved money there. We didn't know, right? Clearly. But we were literally able to just do a facelift on this bad boy. We turned around and sold it for 127 grand. Literally quickest, easiest flip of my life, right? Now, that's over 100% return, like, so on HGTV sometimes, right? Like, you put out 750 grand and then you put in $125,000 and you turn around and you make you $75,000 or $125,000, right? The percentages are different. And so that, even to me at the time, I chose to do stuff in Detroit because I was physically there and I could see it. But make sure the business makes sense, right? When you were the bank, you're figuring out, where can I get the best return for my money today, right? Whether as a bank, it's like, oh, I'm gonna give Yannick a car loan today. Oh, I'm gonna give this young lady a home loan today because I can get a different yield on my money right there. So just make sure the maths, right? Like, make sure the business makes sense of whatever you do, and that will, that alone hopefully will alleviate some headache and some stress, because a lot of us, we get into things because we want to be a part of it, and it looks good and it's going to sound really, really good at the networking event. It's going to sound really, really cool, right? But it ain't really going. The math ain't mathing. So sorry
Yeah.
to
No, no,
derail
no.
you, but
That's a
talking to
really, really good point. Really good point. I think the point that you're trying to convey is that make sure that you're creating a profitable real estate business, essentially, right? And it's not about, oh, I own 1,000 units, but maybe I own 1% of 1,000, right? Well, you might as well just own 10 single families in that case, right? So it's like, the goal, I tell people this all the time. My goal is to create a real estate empire that is profitable, right? And how I want to do that might be different from the next person, but whether you're in apartments, mobile home parks, self-storage, if you're just renting out parking lots, right? Then you have to focus on profitability and not necessarily chasing the shiniest object, right? Because maybe apartments might be the hot thing, but maybe you're not making a lot of money on apartments in your market. So you might have to go and do self-storage units, right? So it's about, the Mogul Marathon is about creating a profitable business and doing something in a way that creates a life by design, right? So, what you touched on was spot on, and I 100% agree. Before we moved on to that, I was getting to the point of due diligence, right? And we know in the professional athlete space, you don't necessarily have a ton of time, like during the season, to vet a lot of deals and look at opportunities. And historically, people have preyed on professional athletes, right? I know that there's certain situations that we're not going to bring up right now, but in the case of due diligence, when you're making these investments, how are you approaching due diligence? Maybe during the football season and then maybe in the off season as well. Are there any differences and from a time perspective or how you're approaching it? I think our listeners would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I try to make my process. Like, these are my check boxes. So originally there was no process, right? Like, it was just, oh, this looks nice. Okay, the numbers make sense. Comps, what are those, right? Like, all right, well, let me look at this. Don't even know what I'm looking at per se, but I would sit down and you're going to have to walk me through this. You want my money? You're going to have to walk me through this mug, right? And over time, doing that time and time again, you start to develop like, okay, well, this is the list of things that I have to see before I can even have a conversation with you about investing in it, right? Once I develop that, what I will say is, what I learned is that when you have clearly I've been blessed, right? And I don't say that in an arrogant way. I say that more in a way of like, when you have a consistent, steady income stream, it's easier for me to say no to deals. Like, I don't have to force anything to happen. And I always valued and appreciated that, because there was so much noise and so many people coming after me trying to get me to invest in deals, especially once articles and things like that started coming out, that like, I don't have to force it in order to feed myself 3 months from now, 8 months from now, 2 years from now. Like, if the deal makes sense, the numbers make sense, we'll do it. If not, cool, I'm okay. Like, we'll eat tomorrow. And so for me, every year, or really almost every deal, the process gets better and stronger and stronger and stronger. First, I start with the investment return that I'm looking for at that time, right? Originally for flips, it was a minimum of $35,000 return in profit. And if it wasn't hitting that threshold, we're not playing with it. Because if I'm aiming for at least 35K and something messes up during the rehab, all right, now we at 28. Oh, dang, now we at 21, right? If I'm aiming for 20K and something messes up during the rehab, now we at 8. Now we just, hopefully we getting out alive, right? So again, I'm able to have, and again, 35K, that was Detroit standards, right? But I'm able to have a higher ceiling for, or a higher tolerance of like, no, I can say no to that. No, I can say no to that because of my playing income, so to speak, or consistent incomes. Develop the process over time. And now what the process looks like is we have a team of advisors and a team of relationships and partners, where if it's a land deal or a large multifamily over 100 units type of thing, I have one person I go to for that, right? If it is a multi-unit under 100 units, I have a team that I go to for that. I own a development company. So the CEO of our company is going to go look at those deals and all of that type of stuff, right? Give me their opinion. And I get multiple people's opinion. I want people poking holes in it. And so, yeah, it as you mentioned, like, I'm in different pockets, so to speak, and there's no way for me to be an expert and go 30,000 feet deep at any one thing, because I'm spread thin, which some people say is negative, but I just rely on extremely experienced people who actually have put in the time and invested in me, and they want to see me do well, because when I do well, we do well. And I just relied on that to this point. And so, I joke with people, I'm DJ Khaled. I just put the track together. We're gonna bring the table. We'll make the table nice, and then I'm gonna go get some of the best in the world. Oh, you come on, you jump on the track. Give me one verse. Okay, all right, cool. You talking too much. Come on, you give me somebody, right? Like, and so that's what I do, is I bring in the deals, and then now I'm sorting them out and sending them to the advisors who can really poke holes in them, and they hold they don't hold their tongue.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great way, a great framework that you have that allows you to vet the deals, especially with, all the attention and all the deal flow that you must be getting on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis. You have to have some sort of decision-making framework that allows you to first pre-vet the deal to see if it's worth spending your time. And then from there, then you can dispatch some of those deals to your qualified. And I say qualified, meaning that someone that's in your best interest that can tell you straight up, this is something that you should not do. I think every professional athlete needs someone in their corner that can advise them on that particular skill set. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you should have your person that's specialized in stocks looking at real estate investments, right? Because they're two different things, right? And vice versa, right? But I think, if you're a professional athlete out there that is trying to get into different asset classes, find someone that can be your mentor, right? And
Yeah.
have them on your team, and that might be maybe compensating them something small for their time for looking at deals or whatever the case may be. But the point is that you need your team of advisors to look after you, right? Because your goal is to make as much money on the field, right? And you and I know how the NFL is, and that's a different conversation for another day. But you have to
Mhm.
maximize that earning potential within a small window, which you've done a great, amazing job at.
I appreciate you, man. And I think that, like, just adding on to that is like, because you brought it up so well, is like, it's not necessarily getting your stock or portfolio manager, your stock portfolio manager to review your real estate deals or your venture investment deals, because they don't get paid off of it. Two, or a lot of times they don't get paid off of it. But two, they're incentivized. Their incentives are different. The quickest way, like, I'm a butcher the quote, but so I'm gonna make up my own, right? But when I go into a room, I want to know how everyone eats. I want to know how you survive, how you put food on your plate, and your family's plate. Because if I know how you eat, then I know where you're going to steer me. Like, if you're the insurance salesperson, you're going to still steer me to a bunch of different insurance policies, right? If you're the real estate folks, you're going to steer me to the real estate, right? If you're so whatever it is, like, know how people are incentivized, because then that'll help you uncover their bias. And the other thing, especially for pro athletes, but just I'll say anybody in general, moguls in general, right, is you want to make sure that that team of advisors, like, they can remove their ego. That is something that is tough to do, and is, I've been developing over time with my team. Is like, because there's some people who, if you're not doing my deal, I don't I don't like this other deal, right? I want you to ask tough questions. I want you to poke holes in my thesis, but I also want you to be willing and comfortable to invest if I brought a stellar deal to you as well too, right? And so that's one of the things that I would say, you can develop that over time, but I've found that, um, you know, again, once you uncover people's biases and you can really take time to understand their ego and where their motives lie, then that's when hopefully over time you can separate the real from the fake, and the people, and you build your team that wants to see your portfolio and net worth grow, because they know that again, it should also incentivize and help them as well too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think the key there is just alignment of interests, right? And we know that professional athletes have been preyed upon, as I mentioned. But just make sure that your team is qualified and is in your best interest is the best way to put it. So, um, from an athlete's perspective, right? What do you think is the next best thing for athletes to do moving forward from a collaboration perspective? That's something that you and I talk about all the time. Excuse me, all the time offline. Like, what is the next best step for athletes to collaborate on a high level that you think?
Yeah, it's really simple. It's talk more. It's making more time for each other and for conversations like this. It's being able to come around a boardroom table and sit down and share what you're doing without looking for anything from each other. Sharing your mistakes as well as your wins, so that other people in the room can be like, "Dang, I didn't even know that existed. Hold on, what they your agent stole what from you? Hold on. Who you with again? Oh man, I got him too. Or her too. Hold up. Let me check my account, right? Like, just talk to each other, right? The thing is, unfortunately, Fortunately, we're some of the most competitive people in the world. Unfortunately, we've been competing against each other since rivals and scout and 5-star. You got 4 stars? How he got 4 stars? I got 3.5 stars. Oh no, forget him. And then now we get to the next level and I'm trying to get drafted over you. And then now we get to the next level and now I'm trying to get playtime. I'm trying to get a bigger contract than you. I like you. You really cool dude. I want to see you do well, but not as good as me, right? Like, I just want you to be one step below me, right? Because I'm a competitor. And unfortunately, that type of mentality has, in my opinion, crossed over off the field, right? It's hard to look at somebody as competition for the majority of your life and then now want to do business with them and want to break bread with them. And so it keeps us in a crabs in a barrel mentality, so to speak. And I don't think it's intentional. I just think it's subliminal, right? It's something that's been baked into us over time. And so I think the simplest thing we could start doing is having mastermind roundtable sessions, having Discord groups or chat groups, and just talking about things and updating folks, like business wise and non-business wise, personally as well too. And so I think that would be just the one major step that I can see is like the next step is simple, but it's also just making time. And the final thing, again, we were talking offline, is like, a lot of times we as and I'll put it as a culture, and a culture of athletes, a culture of Black men, specifically talking about myself. Let's use an I statement here. I won't generalize or put it on anybody else, but like, I have made the mistake of always looking externally and outward for the solutions to my problems, right? Like, oh, I need money, I need funding. Oh, I need this, I need that. Oh man, I'm trying to get like you. I'm trying to get like this. I'm trying to own this. And so I look outwards all the time, as opposed to first saying, okay, I'm trying to get that. Okay, let me look at my network. What do I have right here around me in the room, right? Like, most of us, we want food, right? Well, I don't know. Everybody's different, right? But like, because it's so easy to order out nowadays, right? Like, if you get hungry, you like, man, like, let me see what I can order and get the drop right off at the crib, as opposed to like, yo, let me look in the pantry real quick. What we got here that we can put together, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm personally challenging myself to do now and from here on out, is just to maximize where my feet are, maximize the room, maximize my relationships, and not maximize and just take. Yannick, give me this. Yannick, give me that. Yannick, give me your time. No, but like, just understand you and your relationships more, and understand what adds value to you. And, oh, well, you trying to do that? Well, it's easy for me to make an intro to such and such over here who's trying to do that as well too. And like, if we just maximized our internal relationships and mental bandwidth more, I think that right there alone, it literally changes the game overnight.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I think that is the thing that is the hardest to do, right? Is to get a bunch of athletes together in a room at the same time and have them all communicate and collaborate on just knowledge, right? That is something that it seems like it's the toughest part to get over the hill. But I think for us to, transcend into the direction and the potential that we've had from potential that we have, because we started off as athletes that really didn't have any education, right? We didn't know anything. We just signed all these contracts, turned out to be bad contracts. Now the modern day athlete is signing good deals. They have better representation because of the access to information, right? And there's a lot of money to be made off of the field. Now I think the next step is for us to, like you mentioned, start looking within the network and really talk to each other and collaborate and just learn from each other, because a lot of times we've dealt with or ran into similar situations that we can all learn from, right? Because the professional athlete's background is a little bit different from your average person, right? The mentality is just a little bit different. The competitiveness is just a little bit different. And all of that has been a part of our DNA, in a sense, since we started playing sports, right? So we just need to reverse or recode that DNA in a way that allows us to work with each other. We can still be competitive, but from a perspective of competing together, right? Which is the same thing that we do currently on the field. as well.
Mm. Yeah. Nah, I completely agree with you, man. It's when we get that right, it's again, it's a game changer. And I think that, like you said, the access to information is the barriers to information are the lowest that they've ever been. Um, and and so my grandfather played in the NFL. I believe you knew that. He played for 11 years. Like when he did his contract, like he didn't have no choice. Right? Like we're standing on the shoulders of guys like himself, 65 through 76, right? His starting quarterback was Johnny Unitas, who would be, in comparison today, he would be the, I guess he would be like the Aaron Rodgers of that era, right? Like his contract was $7,000 for the year. Like they had to have multiple jobs. They were substitute teachers in the off season, right? Which is wild to think about. They didn't have no choice. Like we have a choice. Like we literally have a choice. And so your choice is make an excuse of what you can't do or the time you don't have or whatever. Or the choice is, okay, how do I maximize this? How do I maximize these relationships? How do I maximize this platform? How do I maximize my money? How do I maximize my time? And I think now we have it. I mean, this is a fact. Now there's a bigger opportunity than ever to do that with technology and social media and podcasts like this. And hopefully next year it becomes even better of an opportunity. It's just the way technology continues to advance us. So again, there's no excuse at this time. If you're not inspired by, well, I shouldn't make blanket statements like that, but I was going to say, let me just say it. If you're not inspired by what guys like LeBron James are doing, or what Shonda Rhimes does, or what Oprah has done, or what Tyler Perry is doing, and how they are not just they're figuring out a way to live their dreams, but also do really good business at the same time, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna go ahead and act and create movies, but I'm also gonna own the real estate as well too, right? Like now you're starting to layer your dreams on, and that's when you start to become a mogul, right? Like when your production company is paying the rent for your real estate, and then you're also getting other rents, and then now again, that's when you start to become a mogul. And so I'm inspired by folks like that, the Kevin Harts of the world, and shoot, the Yannick Cudjoe-Virgils of the world. So I'm gonna just keep going, my brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I'm so happy we had a chance to have this conversation. We touched on the professional athlete's mindset, your journey in real estate, your mindset from active versus passive, a ton of knowledge that I think our listeners really enjoyed and can really benefit from. So if our listeners want to follow you, learn from you, get in touch with you, possibly, what's the best way for them to get in contact?
Yeah, great question. So in order to follow me, you can go to brandoncopeland.com. That's my site. You'll see any and all information, all the things we're involved in there. You can also follow me on social media at bcope51, BCOPE51. And then finally, if you want to, you can text your boy. You can text your boy at 917-909-4915 and text me mogul. Man, just text me mogul. I'll lock you in, and then that'll make sure I'm shooting you updates on what I'm doing in the real estate world, but then also again, everything's about community. Everything's about accountability, and for me, being around positive people. So iron sharpens iron. These journeys, the mogul marathon. I mean, look, you hit the nail on the head, right? Like marathon, that journey is not always pretty, and sometimes you need that accountability group that can help lift you up and remind you how amazing you actually are, or remind you it's just a little season. So again, 917-909-4915.
Absolutely, man. It was a great show today. Thank you for being a guest on our podcast. Again, thank you to all of our listeners out there for tuning in to another episode of the Mogul Marathon Real Estate Podcast. Again, please leave a review. It really helps with the show's visibility. And until next time, be sure to be great, take action, and remember that real estate is a marathon, not a sprint. So run your own race. Thanks again, Brandon.
Thank you.